Imagine this. A city once alive with children laughing, markets buzzing and fires glowing in the night. Then, without warning, it's gone. No ruins. No battle scars. No ashes left behind. Just silence, as if the earth swallowed it whole. Tonight, we'll drift back in time to explore the haunting mystery of the city that vanished without a trace. There are moments in history that slip through our fingers like sand, moments that feel more like dreams than facts. This is a story of a city once filled with voices, footsteps, and hope, a place where life unfolded in ordinary ways. Families gathered for meals, merchants traded goods, children chased each other down narrow lanes. And then silence. No great fire. No invading army etched into the records. No catastrophe carved into stone. Just a void. The story of this city is not one of glory, but of disappearance. A city that lived, thrived, and then simply vanished. Classical Building, Chapter 1, The Rise of the Forgotten City. Long ago, between the crossroads of ancient trade routes, stood a settlement. Its true name has been lost. Some call it Kalasa, others whisper it was Aloria. But whatever it was called, it was real. Imagine standing there on a warm morning centuries ago. The air thick with the smell of baked bread and spice herbs. Merchants shouting out their wares. Silk from the east, bronze tools from the west, sacks of salt stacked high. The streets were dusty, uneven, but full of movement. Goats tied to posts, children darting through alleys, women carrying water jars from the well. Farmers arrived with baskets of wheat, while shepherds led flocks toward the market. The city wasn't Rome or Athens. It didn't seek eternal monuments or marble palaces. It was a living city, ordinary yet vibrant, a place where people worked, loved, argued, and dreamed. But this thriving rhythm would not last. Scroll Chapter 2, A Silence in the Records. History usually has a pattern. Taxes recorded on scrolls. Battles carved on monuments. Letters written by traveling merchants. For the city, that pattern breaks. In one century, its name is mentioned in a few scattered places. On empire tax lists, in the notes of traders passing through, in whispers of tribute paid to larger powers. Then, suddenly, the mentions stop. No record of its fall. No chronicle of its destruction. Just absence. It is as if someone pressed pause on history. And in that pause, the city was erased. This silence is louder than words. Because when something truly vanishes, the emptiness it leaves behind becomes its story. Waterwave Chapter 3, Theories of the Vanishing. Scholars and dreamers alike have tried to fill that silence with answers. Globe showing Europe Africa Theory 1, The Wrath of Nature. Perhaps an earthquake shook the ground, crumbling homes and scattering survivors. The region is known for tremors. But when archaeologists dug into the soil, they found no deep cracks, no tumbled stone walls. Or maybe it was water. Rivers nearby might have shifted, drowning fields and houses. Ancient floods often left behind thick layers of mud, sealing entire towns beneath them. Yet here, the land looks ordinary, untouched. Microbe Theory 2, The Breath of Death. Others believe disease crept through the streets. A plague so swift that people fled, leaving behind their homes. History is full of such tragedies, the Black Death in Europe or smallpox in the Americas. Perhaps this city suffered a quieter version of the same. But if so, no neighboring records mention it. Crossed Swords Theory 3, The Politics of Erasure. And then comes a darker theory. Maybe the city was deliberately forgotten. Empires sometimes punished enemies not by fire, but by memory. They erased names, burned scrolls, and ordered that no word of the place be spoken again. To erase someone from history is to kill them twice, once in life, once in memory. Could this city have been such a victim? Amphora Chapter 4, The Ghost Beneath the Soil. In the late 19th century, curious archaeologists began to dig. They expected walls, markets, temples, streets, something grand. Instead, they found crumbs of life, a broken clay jar, the stone base of what may have been a well. A spindle once used to spin wool into thread. These fragments spoke of daily life, ordinary lives. And yet, where were the city walls? The temples? The monuments? One archaeologist sighed as he brushed dust off a fragment of pottery and said, "It feels as though the earth swallowed the city whole, digesting its stones until only crumbs remain. To stand there today, you'd never know a city once thrived beneath your feet. Fields stretch quietly, grass bends in the wind, birds call across the silence, and beneath it all, ghosts." Sheaf of Rice, Chapter 5, Life Before the Silence. To understand what was lost, we must imagine what life once felt like. At dawn, the city awoke with the sound of wooden shutters opening. Smoke curled from clay ovens as bread was baked. Merchants prepared their stalls, spreading out bolts of cloth, jars of honey, baskets of figs. Children splashed water at the wells, laughing before running off to their chores. In the evenings, fires glowed in courtyards. Families gathered for meals, flatbread, olives, lentils, perhaps roasted lamb if fortune smiled. Musicians played simple flutes while neighbors exchanged stories. It was not a city of kings. It was a city of people, and that may be why its loss feels so haunting. It was not just a capital erased. It was ordinary lives silenced. Hourglass Not Done, Chapter 6, Lessons in Impermanence. Why does this story matter when so many towns have risen and fallen? Because this city reminds us that permanence is an illusion. We often believe our cities will stand forever. Our monuments will outlast us. Our names will echo in records. But here lies proof that even a thriving city can be erased so completely that only whispers remain. What truly lasts, then? The walls? The writings? Or the memory of being remembered? This city had none. And perhaps that is what unsettles us most. Leaf Fluttering Inwind, Chapter 7, The Beauty of Silence. Travelers who walk across the land today see nothing more than open fields. Farmers plow the soil. Grass sways with the wind. The earth seems calm, indifferent. But if you pause, if you listen closely, you might feel it, the silence of a city that once was. History is often noisy, filled with wars and kings demanding to be remembered. But sometimes, the quietest histories leave the deepest echoes. Perhaps one day, more stones will rise from the soil. Perhaps archaeologists will uncover streets and walls, and we'll know for certain what happened here. Or perhaps it will stay as it is. A city swallowed by silence. A city remembered not for its glory, but for its absence. The story of the city that vanished without a trace is not just about the past. It is about us. Because one day, our own shining cities, our monuments of glass and steel, may fade into the same silence. And future voices may ask of us what we ask them. Who lived here? What happened? Why are they gone? And so, the mystery continues, not in ruins or records, but in the curiosity it awakens in us. A reminder that nothing lasts forever, not even cities. When we think of lost cities, we often picture towering ruins, stone arches, crumbling temples, half-buried statues staring into the horizon. But here, there are none. This city leaves behind no theater, no amphitheater, no palace, only whispers. And yet, if you close your eyes, you can almost imagine the footsteps, the shuffle of sandals on dirt streets, the echo of a hammer striking metal in the blacksmith's yard, the rhythm of a woman grinding grain at dawn. Every trace of sound is gone now, but the earth remembers. Archaeologists sometimes say the soil itself holds memory, that when you walk across forgotten ground, you walk across the ghosts of lives once lived. In this field of silence, the forgotten city lingers like a shadow you can't quite see, but know is there. Fallen Leaf, Chapter 9, The Vanishing of Memory. Perhaps what is most haunting is not that the city was destroyed, but that it was forgotten. When Troy fell, poets sang. When Pompeii burned, the ash preserved it. When empires collapsed, their ruins still marked the landscape. But here, nothing. No poet's lament. No inscription carved in grief. No legend carried forward by generations. It was as if the people themselves, once they walked away, chose not to look back. Or, perhaps, others chose never to speak of them again. Forgetting is a kind of silence, and in some ways it is the most permanent ruin of all. And for Chapter 10, what daily life may have held, let us, for a moment, step back in time. And imagine life here before the silence. Picture the marketplace at its height. Stalls covered in woven cloth, baskets full of figs, grapes, and olives. Merchants with worn voices, calling out their prices as neighbors bartered. A potter works at his wheel, his hands slick with clay. A young girl watches her father bake bread, the smell drifting across the narrow lane. Somewhere, music rises, a reed flute playing a soft tune above the noise of trade. At night, oil lamps flicker in clay houses. Families gather in courtyards, telling stories of ancestors, while children chase fireflies in shadows. None of them knew that their city's name would one day be nothing more than dust. Waterwave Chapter 11, When Nature Whispers. Scholars have debated whether nature itself was the true culprit. Perhaps the river that once sustained life here shifted its course. A change so gradual the people tried to adapt, digging new wells, moving their fields, until one day the water was gone. Or perhaps drought came silently, year by year, harvest shrinking, families forced to leave. Hunger does not roar like war, it whispers. A whisper of empty bowls, of dry soil beneath tired hands. And so, slowly, silently, the city may have emptied, not in a single day, but across a generation. One household leaving after another, until the last door closed and silence remained. Crossed Swords Chapter 12, The Fragility of Power. Another possibility, the politics of empire. Cities often lived under larger rulers, kings, emperors, warlords whose names filled stone inscriptions. When empires shift, cities can vanish in their shadow. Maybe the city stood loyal to the wrong ruler. Maybe it backed the wrong rebellion. Maybe a conqueror marched through and declared erased. Not burned, not crushed, but denied. To erase a name is more powerful than to destroy a wall. Walls can be rebuilt, but once memory itself is stolen, it rarely returns. Milky Way Chapter 13, Lesson for us today. What can we learn from a city that left no trace? It reminds us that even the greatest noise can one day fade into silence. Our modern cities, glowing with steel and glass, feel eternal, yet they too may fall to drought or plague, or the shifting winds of power. One day, perhaps, future generations may stand where our cities once stood, wondering, who lived here? What happened? Why did they vanish? The silence of this forgotten city is a mirror held up to us. Leaf Fluttering Inwind Chapter 14, The Quiet Power of Mystery. There is something strangely comforting about this story. Not knowing the ending gives it a kind of peace. If the city had burned, we would only remember its destruction. If it had been conquered, we would only recall its defeat. But because it simply vanished, it exists in a softer place, in imagination. The quiet mystery itself becomes part of its beauty. Crescent Moon Chapter 15, A City of Dreams. Perhaps that is how this city survives, not in ruins, not in scrolls, but in the human imagination. Every traveler who passes the fields wonders about it. Every archaeologist who digs into the soil feels its shadow. Every listener who hears this story imagines its streets in their own way. And so, maybe the city that vanished without a trace still lives. Not in stone, not in maps, but in us. Sparkle's final reflection. The silence of the city teaches us something gentle, something easy to forget in the rush of modern life. That nothing is forever. Every monument, every tower, every empire will one day fade. What remains is not always a stone, but the story. The city that vanished without a trace has no walls, no gates, no monuments. But it has us, curious minds still asking questions, still imagining, still remembering.